Chapter 11-6, Surface Areas and Volumes of Spheres. So, as we already know, the radius for the sphere, it's just like the radius for a circle, okay? It starts at the center, and it travels to the edge of the circle or the edge of the sphere, okay? If it were a diameter, it would go from one end of the sphere through the center to the other end of the sphere. So if it goes all the way through, that's the diameter. And as always, the diameter is 2 times the radius. So this is the formula for the surface area of a sphere. It is 4 times pi times r squared. So this surface area formula is for a sphere. Okay, just to show you why the surface area is 4 pi r squared, let's say you have a cover on a baseball. A baseball is a sphere, and you unwrap the cover. That would be like 4 circles. All right, we know the area of a circle is pi r squared, and there's 4 circles that would make up the sphere. So it's basically 4 times pi r squared. So that's for surface area. Problem 1, what is the surface area of the sphere in terms of pi? Let's take a look. Okay, we have our surface area formula, 4 pi r squared. Here is our sphere, and we can see this is not a radius, but a diameter. Okay, it goes all the way through from one end to the other, through the center. So the diameter is 10. We need the radius. So the radius is just half of the diameter. All right, so the radius is just going to be half of 10, which of course is 5. So we're going to use r equals 5 in the formula. Okay, we have 4 times pi, and in place of r, I'm plugging in 5, and that's going to be 5 squared. Now they want the answer in terms of pi, so I'm going to leave pi alone and just do 4 times 5 squared. Okay, 4 times 5 squared is 100, and we still have pi. The units were in meters, but when we did r squared, the meters got squared. So just like all areas, the units are squared. So that's 100 pi meters squared. Okay, please try number 1, surface area of a sphere with a diameter of 14 inches. Give your answer in terms of pi and round it to the nearest square inch. So that would be the nearest whole number. So please try that. So we have our formula once again, 4 pi r squared. Okay, so that's going to be 4 times pi. And we need to find r. If the diameter is 14, the radius is just going to be half of that. So half of 14 is 7. All right. So r is 7. In place of r squared, I'm going to do 7 squared. Okay, first they said in terms of pi, so at first I'm going to leave pi alone and just do 4 times 7 squared. All right, 4 times 7 squared is going to be 196. And of course, we still have the pi. So that's the answer in terms of pi. If we want to do nearest square inch, I will do 196 on pi on the calculator. And I get 615.7, but they said nearest square inch. So I'm just looking at the first decimal. Since it's 5 or more, this gets rounded up. So 615 becomes 616. Okay, and the units were in inches. So the final units will be inches squared. And that applies to this one too. That's in terms of pi. That's going to be inches squared as well. Problem 2, Earth's equator is about 24,902 miles long. What is the approximate surface area of Earth round to the nearest 1,000 square miles? Okay, so the last 3 digits will be 000, all right, because it's going to be the nearest 1,000. So here's a rough sketch of the Earth. Okay, obviously the equator goes around the Earth, and since the equator circles the Earth, the equator is basically the circumference of the Earth. It's the distance around. And we know the formula for circumference is 2 times pi times r. So I am going to set the distance that they gave us equal to the circumference formula. All right, the equator distance is 24,902. So in place of equator, 24,902, and that equals the circumference, which is 2 times pi times r. Now, if we want to find surface area, we need to solve for r. So since r is times 2 pi, the opposite of times 2 pi is divided by 2 pi. So I apply that to both sides. Okay. On the right-hand side, it cancels 2 over 2, pi over pi. And you just do this on the calculator in order to solve for r. Okay, so dividing both sides by 2 times pi on the right-hand side, 2 and the pi, 2 and the pi, they both cancel. Solving for r, I am going to enter this into the calculator. I am going to put parentheses around the 2 times pi so the calculator knows that's in the denominator. So I'm going to do 24,902 divided by parentheses 2 times pi, close parentheses, and hit equals. Okay, and I get 3,963. And I'll just use 2 decimals. I'll say, I'll just use 1 decimal. We'll say 0.3. Okay, so that is r. Now, for a more accurate answer, if you want, you can keep all the decimals by storing the value you got on the calculator, storing your answer on the calculator. Since they told us to approximate round to the nearest 1,000 square miles, it won't really make a difference. Okay, so if you really wanted a real accurate answer, you can store this, the whole decimal in the calculator without rounding off. But I'm just going to use this because it's not going to matter. All right, so for surface area, it's 4 times pi times r squared. So we have 4 times pi times 3,963.3 squared. Okay, again, I'm going to do this on the calculator. Okay, and of course we get a really big number here. I'll put in the commas. All right, after every 3 digits, I'm going to put in the commas here. They said round to the nearest 1,000. All right, so since this number right here is less than 5, I am just going to keep this part here. We're going to round it down basically. So it's going to be 197, 389. And rounding down, this is just 1,000. Okay, the units, I'm assuming they were in miles. Yeah, square miles. There you go. Okay, the units were in miles. So this is going to be miles squared. All right, so they made it seem like a bad process because of these massive numbers. But really, we just solve for r using the circumference formula, and then we just plugged it into the surface area formula. Okay, and just real quick, comparing with their answer, they got 197,387,000. Okay, 197,387,000. I got 197,389,000. Okay, and that's because I rounded off. So like I said, if we did this on the calculator and stored this number and then used that number right here, I would have got 387,000 instead of 389, but no big deal. Okay, please pause and try problem number 2. They want you to find the surface area of a melon with circumference of 18 inches. Okay, and then round to the nearest 10 square inches. So the number should end in a 0 after you round off. But remember to use, for circumference, you want to use 2 pi r. And of course, set it equal to 18, solve for r. And then for surface area, you want to use 4 pi r squared. Okay, so see if you can solve that one. All right, so we are given the circumference is 18 inches, so I'm going to set C equal to 18 inches. And I know the formula for circumference C is 2 times pi times r. All right, solving for r, I'm going to divide both sides by 2 times pi. And of course, it cancels on the right. And I'm going to do this part on the calculator. 18 divided by 2 times pi. I'm going to use parentheses around the 2 pi. Okay, rounding off, I get the radius r is approximately 2.86. And now using the surface area formula, 4 pi r squared. All right, so that's going to be 4 times pi times 2.86 squared. All right, let's see what we get here on the calculator. Okay, again, a big decimal rounding off. I got 102.8. They said rounded to the nearest 10 square inches. Okay, so if we look at the number 2 right here, that is less than 5. Okay, so I'm going to round this down to 100. All right, so we're rounding once again. That's 100. Square inches or inches squared are the units. So that will be the final answer. Okay, and what I'm going to do real quick, I want to check this number and see if I kept the answer on the calculator, kept that big decimal, and then used it right here. I want to see if my answer is any different. So I'm going to do 18 divided by 2 times pi. All right, and I get a big decimal. I'm going to keep that on the calculator, and I'm going to do 4 times pi times that answer squared. And I get 103.1. Okay, so it wouldn't be any different. 103, once you round it down to the nearest 10, it would still just be 100. So in this case, the round off didn't hurt anything. All right, on to volume. We did cover the formula for the volume of a sphere already. It is 4/3 times pi times r cubed, or r to the 3rd power. So in this case, since we already do it on Khan, I'll just go through the example quickly. They want to know what is the volume of the sphere in terms of pi. All right, and you can see here the radius, it starts at the center and goes to the circle. So this number 6 right here is just the radius r. So if they want it in terms of pi, you just leave pi alone, just like we did on Khan Academy. So 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, it's going to be 4/3 times pi times 6 to the 3rd. Okay, and the way you would get this answer, you want to do 4 times 6 to the 3rd first. Okay, and then divide by 3, and you will get 288, and you just leave pi alone. So it's 288 times pi for the final answer. So in problem 4, we're going to have to work backwards a little bit, just like we did in some other examples for surface area. Okay, it says the volume of the sphere is 5,000 meters cubed. What is its surface area to the nearest square meter. Okay, in order to do surface area, you need to find the radius r. Okay, so I am going to use the volume formula, set it equal to this, and solve for r. Okay, so if the volume is 5,000, we can find r and plug it in for the surface area formula. Let's try it. All right, they told us that the volume of the sphere is 5,000. And the formula for that is 4/3 times pi times r cubed. All right, so we need to solve for r. So the first step is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So instead of 4/3, I am going to multiply both sides by 3/4. Okay, and I need to do that to both sides of the equation. So let me erase this v here and multiply this side by 3/4 as well. All right, so on the right-hand side, it's going to cancel. These are all multiplied. 4 divided by 4 cancels. 3 divided by 3 cancels. Now, we still have pi times r to the third. Okay, so I am going to divide both sides by pi in order to get rid of that. So over here, pi over pi cancels, and r to the third is this mess right here. All right. Now, if you have r to the third, you can't just take the square root because r is not squared. R is to the third power. All right. So if you want to solve for r, what you have to do is raise both sides to the exponent of 1/3. All right, r to the third power raised to the power of 1/3 is just going to be r. So in order to get rid of r cubed, you raise it to the power of 1/3. All right, so this whole thing right here is going to get raised to the power of 1/3. All right, it looks bad, but I'm going to show you the calculator on the screen. Okay, and as far as the r to the third, we're doing the same thing there. All right, it looks messy. I'm going to rewrite the r to the third. All right, because that was the only term left, r to the third. And this is going to be raised to the power of 1/3. Okay, which will just leave r, because 3 times 1/3 is 1, r to the first power. So I'm going to show you this on the on-screen calculator. All right, this is not as bad as it looks. I'm going to do 3/4 first, so 3 divided by 4, hit equals, and of course that's just 0.75. Okay, so this is 0.75 times 5,000, so times 5,000. And you can hit equals again, you don't even have to, but you can, and then divided by pi, all right? Divided by pi, and hit equals. So this mess in parentheses is this right here. That's our answer, and we just take that answer and raise it to the power of 1/3. All right, so here's the answer, and the x to the y is the exponent button, x to the y, and I'm going to use parentheses, 1 divided by 3, and close parentheses. So there's my exponent, 1/3 or 0.33333. Hit equals, and that is my radius right there. Okay, just like we said before, you can store this number in the calculator. I don't think it's going to matter on this one, so I'm just going to use 10.6 for the radius. All right, so this whole mess right here works out to 10.6 for the radius, and from here it's very easy. Okay, the surface area is 4 pi r squared. So that's going to be 4 times pi times 10.6 squared. 10.6 squared. All right, and let me see. You're going to round. What is the surface area to the nearest square meter? Okay, 4 times pi times 10.6 squared. Okay, I got 1411.96 to the nearest square meter. You just look at the first decimal. Since it's 5 or more, we're going to round up. So 1411 is just going to be 1412. And that is going to be in square meters. Okay, I'm assuming the units were in meters because they said round to the nearest square meter. All right, let me double check here. When they gave the volume, the units were meters cubed. So yes, when we found the radius, that was in meters. And this is the final answer right here. So I got 1412, and for their answer, they got 1414. All right, so I think for the radius, they just used more decimals than me. Like I said, you're going to get a big decimal if you want to store this in the calculator. Then your answer will be a little bit more accurate. Okay, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that on the homework. But since I rounded to 10.6, my answer was a tiny bit different than theirs. All right, last problem, the volume. The volume is 4,200. They want us to find the surface area to the nearest tenth. All right, so the volume is 4,200, setting that equal to the actual formula. And I'm going to leave some room on this number this time. Okay, I'll put the equal sign here. The volume formula is 4/3 times pi times r cubed. All right, the first step is to multiply the reciprocal. So 4/3 is going to be times 3/4. If you do that to one side, you have to do that to the other side as well. All right. And 4/3 times 3/4 cancel. 4/4, 3/3. So those are gone. And here we have times pi. The opposite of times pi is divided by pi. All right. So the pi cancels on the right. And we're left with r to the third equals this. In order to get rid of the third power, you want to take that r to the third and raise that to the power of 1/3. Okay, so you do that to both sides. You apply that exponent of 1/3 to both sides. Okay, and that is going to give us the radius. So let's do this on the calculator. Okay, we have 4,200, 4200 times 3/4. Okay, so use parentheses, 3 divided by 4, and close parentheses. Of course, that's just 0.75. Hit equals. All right, that's our numerator, and then I'm going to divide by pi. Divided by pi. Hit equals. Okay, that's this mess in the brackets, and now I'm going to raise that to the power of 1/3. All right, so here's my answer. I use the y to the x or x to the y button. And the exponent is going to be 1/3. So I'm going to use parentheses, 1 divided by 3. Close parentheses and hit equals. Okay, that's our radius right there. All right, so I'm just going to use 10.01. The most accurate is if you store this radius, but I'm not going to do that. 10.01 is my radius. All right, so this mess worked out to 10.01 for the radius r. All right, and finally, the easy part now is just to do the surface area formula. So we said surface area is 4 pi r squared. Okay, that's going to be 4 times pi. R squared is 10.01 squared. All right, I'm going to do this on the calculator. And I'm just going to go right for the round off here. I get 1259, 1,259. And they said nearest tenth, so I'm going to do 0.2. The units were in feet. So that is going to be feet squared. Final answer.